Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Ana Valdez from the Latinx Education Collaborative. Super excited to be with you again this week. I must have done a good job because they didn't nix me to come back and host again. So today I'm really excited. We have another teacher, an educator, who's going to share some insights and thoughts with us about their perspective on education, sharing some of their origin story, and as always, their great experiences as being a Latinx educator in the greater Kansas City metro area. So without further ado, we'll have Liliana join us.
Hi. How
Hi,
you doing?
Liliana. Good to see you.
Great to see you too, Dr. Valdez.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. It's super exciting to have you join us. As always, before we get started, I want to have you share with us a little bit about your background, what brought you to education, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Sure. So I'm a school counselor, and I was born and raised for up to maybe 25 years, 24 in Mexico.
Okay.
And then I moved to Kansas. So, what brought me to education? Well, I feel that as a human beings, we are an art of pixels, and there is a whole lot that brings you to that spot where you are. So, given a specific reason what brought me, it will be probably taken away from many, many experiences and many people who actually might have, excuse me, influenced to my decision to focus on education as my career. And um, for this, I can tell you, beginning of the time, I can say my family, my values, you know, the instilling of those values as they are building up, like building blocks. That's one part, my grandparents, which I spent so much time with them. Family that work in education, some of them already retired, seeing them, listening to them. And as a counselor, I can't remember the very first time because there are so many other things that brings you, to build up yourself. And I don't know if you will be familiar. I'm sure you are to Mr. Rogers' TV show, very, very much known by probably people our age. So I remember his show and the way how he worked and how he was teaching, skills and kindness, to all of these puppets. With that, I have to say I'm a school counselor, and my framework is through play. So kids will use miniatures, art, drawings, and so I'm puppets and puppets. Um, so I think that all these little tiny things as you're growing up, influences. I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was little. I actually ended up becoming a engineer in Mexico as an electronics. And when I moved here, then I continue my education to become a school counselor.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great intro. So you said you're from Mexico. What part of
Mhm.
Mexico?
North Chihuahua.
Chihuahua. Okay, okay, great. My family is originally from Michoacan, so we're kind of neighbors there on the
Far neighbors.
there's a couple of states in between, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Good,
definitely.
good, good. And you said that you came, like that direct connection. A lot of us, from Mexico to Kansas, we end up here. And people always ask me, especially when I travel outside of the Midwest,
Yeah,
how did your family end up in Kansas? And I'm like, the railroads.
yeah, yeah,
The railroads. That's
yeah.
they just
Uh,
transported us through time and through the states and all of that. So that's
uh,
fantastic. Now, um, you are in a school now, and can you share the district that you're
Yeah,
a
yeah.
counselor?
I'm on KCPS, Kansas City Public School.
Oh, okay, okay, excellent, excellent. And you're
Yeah.
a school counselor. I loved how you touched on the point of play and learning. And I've had the opportunity recently to work with some high school students to have them work on gaining their early childhood certification so that they can become early childhood teachers, educators.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of insight and research about play and the impact that it has on learning and communications and engagement between the children that are experiencing that. Do you want to share a little bit about what you understand the importance and how you've utilized that in your work as far as play and learning?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that is much more difficult for human being is having a voice
Mhm.
and representing that voice. And so through play, it's a way to provide that opportunity for children, but also adults, um, to bring that voice. So sometimes is by utilizing puppets,
Mm,
but also in that representation of how things, what the meaning of things are for the children. We want to focus only through that field, to that area with children. So children will tell you so much that they want to hear, they want to say, and that's something that will empower them, that
mhm,
they have that space to say what they feel or what they need through that play.
mhm,
Um, so it, it is amazing. I mean, honestly, it's such an amazing work that the children, will show for you if you provide that safe environment, but also the opportunity to um, be themselves.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, no, be authentic to who they are, and also be able to find that voice from within in a way that really is their authentic voice to what they're trying to share and how they learn around that. So absolutely. So that's a very interesting concept and theory, and it's not widely used. So share with us a little bit about maybe a teacher or a mentor or maybe even life experience that inspired you to step into the classroom or into this role, and
Mhm.
then leveraging what you were sharing with us, leveraging that to be the kind of educator that you are.
Like I say, there is so many blocks. There's building blocks that helps you to build on yourself. Um, and I could tell you so many are no less than the other one. And I think that my most empowerment and motivation are my own children,
Mm,
because I think that they have been my best teachers,
mm,
as a human being. So I think that recognizing the needs that they have or they had as a growing up,
mhm,
and as parents, it's a much more difficult career that you will ever encounter to be a parent,
mhm,
and answers that sometimes you can't find.
mm,
So, as my children were growing up, like I told you, I was raised in Mexico, so the education here is totally different than what it is there. I mean, the
sure.
experience, even most of the buildings, like I said, I don't want to say every school, but most of the schools are even different.
Yeah.
So there was so much lack of understanding of how the education was given to my own children,
Mm,
that I felt that there was something that we needed as a parents, that connection between the school and the parents and the gap of knowledge of the system. Because when my kids will speak about things, I don't know, the most recent, from high school, they will talk about blocks,
Mhm.
block docs. Okay, what's a block? It's and what are you talking about? Oh, they start talking to me, and somewhere I was lost because that little tiny concept that they were talking about. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, the debulls, how they were evaluated, how they were testing, the things that they needed. So I'm like, we need to have that connection between the school and the parent. So at this time, I am at a dual language, and that's where my um, focus on moving to Missouri school because
Mhm.
that's where our Latin families, are, and I wanted to be able to connect and help them understand, how the school works in here, and so they can be a help for your students as well.
Sure, absolutely. So, how does your so you've mentioned this, and there's a couple of kernels I'm going to kind of pull out and talk about with you.
Mhm.
So, when you talk about not understanding what your kids are telling your own children are telling you,
Yeah.
how do you use that, or how do you incorporate that information in your identity as a Latinx educator? And how does that shape how you approach working with families, working with colleagues, working with
Mhm.
students?
Like I say, understanding that me as an immigrant, it
Mm,
wasn't just understanding and learning, the English, if you want to think, or practicing, or anything that had to do with the regular language, but it had to do as the more specific system of education.
mhm.
In Mexico, we don't have Section 504. We don't have, well, I'm talking about time, years. I don't know now, Well, so I don't want to find out, oh, no, somebody says, no, no, they do. Okay, probably, I don't know at this time. But there's not any of that, yeah, so, you, it's not just the basic language that you will use daily, but it's the school. So as an immigrant, as a Latino, a Hispanic, I was like, okay, this is a new world. No one is gonna really care how much I understand for that.
Yep.
Because you look at here, I think that your parents just stay right there, and I'll let you know when I need you. I'll let you know when I need something. But there was nothing for me that I will say there was someone in the school that will say, oh, here, let's talk about the education, or, these are devils, and this is how we measure your reading of your kids, or no one was there.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the big thing, as a Latinos, we don't have that um, source of information just given to us. So
Mhm.
we don't know what to ask, or what it, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. That,
Right.
that's simple. So I think that one of the things that I've learned is no matter what it is, whether it's medical, whether it's education, we gotta be aware that we don't know.
Sure.
And sometimes we worry. We don't want to ask because
Mhm.
we don't want to stand in front of the teachers, and to causing more trouble for them, or feeling out of place. I think that's mostly we might just feel out of place
Mhm.
asking more questions
Mhm.
about the education of our children. And
Mhm.
it's probably not so much in our culture because, as I believe, growing up, we trust so much the education of our teachers and have so much respect for the teachers
Mhm.
that we leave the work to them. It's like, okay, here's the child. Not that we don't care for the education, we do, but we have such respect for our educators that we trust our children at such level,
Mhm.
as again, as Hispanic, that we think, okay, anything it's done is done right.
Sure.
But all of our educators, whether it's in Mexico or in China or in here. It is a limit, and they need the help of the parents. And as a Latino, I think we need to get more involved on the education of our students, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh, that's point on and a great segue into what I'm going to ask you next.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about what sparked your passion to be an educator.
Mhm.
Now I want to have you talk to us a little bit about, and you kind of touched on this a little bit about
Mhm.
challenges of being a Latinx parent, but
Mhm.
what are some joys about being a Latinx educator? Like what brings you joy? What happens or what has happened that you continue to show up every day for your students and for your families? What's the joy part of your teaching experience or educator experience?
I think that um, as a human beings, we are unique.
Hmm.
Like I said, we are, made of all pixels. And every child that I have, opportunity to engage,
Hmm.
seeing them their big success for other people might be just a tiny little step.
Yeah.
For them, it's a big step. You know, just seeing their face. When they figured out things, and that's one. Seeing the parents joy when they, oh, I didn't know this, okay. And seeing also that every day there are much more parents that are willing to make a step forward for the education of their students and are asking questions,
Hmm.
are willing to even sit with me in a conversation.
Yeah.
You, what else can I do? uh,
Yeah.
so seeing that grow from Latinos, um, or Hispanic. I like to use Hispanic much more
No,
to
that's
use
absolutely.
Hispanic. To
But you
use,
know, you're touching on something. Sorry, Liliana. You're touching on something, and I don't want it to get lost.
yeah,
And that what you're touching on is the
yeah,
spark of learning,
that's part of
spark
me.
of
Hmm.
understanding.
Yes.
And I think as educators, we
Yeah.
are so lucky to see that.
Hmm.
And if you've seen it, you know it, right? If you know, you know.
Exactly.
And other people in other careers, they do a great job, and we need all careers and people in all different roles. But
Hmm.
as educators, when you see that spark,
Exactly.
it touch at least for me, it touches my soul, and it really encourages, it's like that fuel to my fire,
Yeah.
to continue on. So I get that, and I don't want that to get lost because it's the end of the school year. It's been a tough school year, especially this semester at the beginning when it snowed and snowed and seemed
Hmm.
like it was going to snow forever. And now we are here at the end of May, almost the end of May, and
Hmm.
most schools are already done. We saw young kids, we saw older kids, we saw grown-ups all walk across the stage. And it doesn't matter whether you're a early childhood educator or you're a professor in college. You know that there was that one kid, you know that there was that one moment, that one parent, that one conversation.
Hmm.
When they walk across the stage,
Yeah.
we get to walk across the stage as
Exactly.
right?
We
So,
do it again and again.
yes. And I think you talked a little bit about this, but I want to bring it back to the conversation. How
Mhm.
do you bring culture, language, and identity into your teaching?
Wow, that's a great question, and you're definitely hitting on a very my heart. That
Yeah.
has come really close to my heart. First of all, the school that I am right now is a dual language, so we use Spanish and English as part of the education for our students. So for me, even before, sitting at the school as a school counselor, I tried to get as many books that were not in Spanish,
Hmm.
English. So my students were able, if I had a small group, they were, all of them were able to use the language they were closer to.
Mhm.
So, sometimes it might be a story that is written, in English first and then translated to Spanish.
Mhm.
That was the one. The other is, as part of the school counselor, making sure that the values, like I told you that on that play framework, it's
Mhm.
important for me that the student feels in a safe environment to be themselves.
Mhm.
Well, same way when speaking to our students, I want to make sure that I understand their side into the culture of values,
Mhm.
and with that, have that respect for them, and make sure at the same time that I encourage them to embrace
Mhm.
that culture for them and their values.
Sure. No, and again, thank you for setting me up for a great segue because my next question
Yeah.
ties into that. And this is the path, right? As Latino educators, Latino professionals in the educational system,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to Latinx students who are considering a career? And also, what advice would you give to young educators who
Mhm.
just graduated over the last couple of weeks
Yeah.
that'll be in the classroom in the fall? What advice do you have for?
I think that something that has helped me, because it hasn't been easy, I have to
Mhm.
tell you, before getting my master's in school counseling, I went to elementary education, um, also undergrad,
Mm,
and through that whole process, it has been very difficult. So the first thing is have self compassion.
self-compassion. Okay.
Is like I say, we don't know what we don't know. So ask questions, observe, see people, but also understand that every person is different and every person has their own recipe. So your recipe, you'll get it as you're making mistakes.
Hmm.
Just take count of those mistakes. Understand yourself, where you're coming from. Don't let anyone have self doubt, because if you believe in something and it's really coming from your heart,
Hmm.
and someone says no, you're wrong, I had it many times. I have many times people says, that's not making sense. And with the time, I saw other people, um, working or reflecting on the same idea that I had.
Mm.
So don't let people make you have doubts of yourself. Some people might be getting discouraged in the career. Some people might have experiences to get them and they will speak on their own experience. Or some people might have their best interest, at heart, and it will tell you something that is not helping you to feel better about yourself. So when you have self compassion and reflecting, okay, what is really I want? What's on my heart? What I'm
Mhm.
doing, and knowing that taking little tiniest steps, it will still bring you where you want to be.
So
Take,
I'm sorry. Oh, I love that concept of you are your own recipe.
yeah.
Love that because every life experience, every set of values, every question that you have,
Mhm.
all the information you gain, your education, your own life experience,
Mhm.
that are all the ingredients. My one of my advisors told me many, 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 many years ago that I was, in regards to my subject, I was the expert in that,
Mhm.
and that I should trust myself.
Exactly.
Nobody knows as much as I do
Yeah.
about what I know. And sometimes there have been cases, even as an older adult,
Mhm.
that I question myself, está loca? Am I like,
Yeah.
I you know, and then I have to remind myself that no, no, I know this. I
Yeah.
studied it. This is the stuff I've done research on.
Yeah.
This is the stuff I've been teaching about.
Yeah.
And so, kind of back to your point, as young professionals, young students, ask the questions, trust yourself, add the ingredients, do the work,
Yeah.
and asking questions. I am a very ardent question asker, because I have to. For me, I have to understand a
Yeah.
concept, and it becomes a part of my DNA, so
Mhm.
that I can be proactive about it, so that I can be engaged about it. So great advice. I love that idea about a recipe. I love that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's really good. So we're almost at the end of time, and I got to ask you this question.
Mhm.
If I were to give you a magic wand, Liliana, and I would say, if you could change one thing, just one,
Mhm.
about education or the
Okay.
educational system to better serve Latinx students,
Yeah.
what would it be? If you had the magic wand and you can change anything, but just
Yeah.
the one thing in education, what would it be?
Yeah. I smile because that maybe what is a question we do. Very common in a different way. So it's nice to hear you're using that. Um, s- Straight to it. I think that we need more um, bilingual education. We need to have many, many more schools who will, be willing to teach, students in both Spanish and English,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that we're doing a disservice to our Latino Hispanic community
Mm-hmm.
by not supporting the language.
Hmm.
And the language is one of our roots, and that's making our the trunk of our tree to tend to different sides because we are missing that root. And I think the stronger the roots for our community,
Mm-hmm.
um, the stronger we're gonna be for our any oncoming, uh, you know, generations. And so language is lost. So often I experience students, who will not speak to their parents, so they don't have to speak Spanish because they're losing that language. And these are English learners.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, if I could, I will have this bilingualism, set for the schools as many as possible. Speaking as a Hispanic, that's what I would like to see more.
So more bilingual education, or more immersion education. Okay,
Mhm.
that's really good. That's interesting. I did this last week with another educator, and they said the very same thing, and that the research is out there. That the
Yes.
research says that you can teach somebody deeply into their own language, which helps them learn all the other subjects,
Yeah.
so that, thoroughly, and can internalize it. So there you go, magic wand, more Latin, Spanish language learning. So
Yeah.
fantastic. Liliana, is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience, on about what you've shared with us today, or
Yeah. As
education in general?
as you mentioned, you have your advisor, and I think that's something that has helped me stand, strong. Is I've been lucky to have amazing advisors around me, and even though they are not Hispanic,
Mhm.
the encouragement and the open book to say, here, you get to write your own story, you get to write your own recipe. And I think it's important that whether we are in the education field or we are in any other fields, um, have that one person who you can go and ask them, could you be my advisor? Could you be my mentor? And have the person.
Yeah. You almost sounded a little bit like Mr. Rogers. Will you be my neighbor?
Will you be my neighbor?
And he was always great about looking for, the helpers in the crowd.
Yeah.
So, that last bit of advice is look for the helpers. So if you're a young educator, if you are a student that is thinking about education as a career choice,
Mhm.
look for the helpers. They
Yes.
are out there. They're
Exactly.
willing and wanting to help. So
Exactly.
thank you so much, Liliana. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you. Uh,
Yeah.
Even though it's just a poquito tiempo, it was fantastic to get to know you, have this conversation.
Yeah.
Everyone out in LEC land, thank you so much for joining us today. Look for more information,
Yeah.
more conversations. If you've missed conversations in the back with our educators, they are all available on our social media channels. I encourage you to go out there, especially at the end of the year. And especially if you are feeling isolated, or if you feel like you're the only
Mhm.
one that's carrying all the water,
Yeah.
you've got a whole network. You've got a whole network of helpers, a whole network of neighbors that are all Latino, all educators who are there to help you.
Yeah.
So I hope that this message, that this information was helpful and insightful and encouraging. I want everyone to have a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend. Summer is almost here for a lot of us. So I encourage everybody to go out, take the break, enjoy the summer, and be back with us again as we continue these conversations. Liliana Mariaca, thank you
Mhm.
so much for being with us. And I just greatly appreciate everything you've had to say today.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Dr.
everyone.
Valdez, for the invitation, and thank you for having me, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.